The conference room floated in space far above Earth. Captain Daniel Harper stood in the middle of the circular chamber, trying to keep his face calm. Around him, 17 alien species appeared as holograms, each one more strange than the last. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few looked like they were made of light itself. But all of them had the same look in their eyes. They thought they were better than humans. Daniel had been a starship captain for only 2 months. 2 months ago, humanity had discovered how to travel faster than light. They had sent out 5 ships to explore nearby star systems. Those ships had found wonders beyond imagination. They had also found the Galactic Sovereignty, an empire of 500 alien species that ruled most of the galaxy. And the sovereignty was not friendly. The Krell ambassador spoke first. He was a huge creature covered in armor plates that looked like a beetle. When he moved, his body made clicking sounds. His voice was deep and threatening. "Human, you do not understand your situation. The sovereignty does not ask. We command. You will give us 70% of your planet's resources. You will send your soldiers to fight in our wars. You will obey our laws. This is not a choice." Daniel felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his voice steady. "Ambassador, my people want peace. We want to trade with you. We want to learn from you. But we will not be slaves." Next to Daniel stood Commander Lisa Grant. She was holding a tablet that showed all the demands the sovereignty was making. The numbers were impossible. If Earth agreed to these terms, humanity would be stripped of everything they had built. Millions would starve. Their children would be forced to fight in wars they knew nothing about. A crystalline alien called a Vrin chimed in. Its voice sounded like breaking glass. "Your wants mean nothing. 500 species serve the sovereignty. You are weak. You are alone. You are primitives who just learned to leave your own star system. You will obey or we will destroy your planet." Lisa's hand moved toward her weapon. Daniel gave her a tiny shake of his head. "Not yet, not here. Then we have nothing more to talk about," Daniel said quietly. The room exploded with alien sounds. Some were laughing. Others were making sounds of anger. The Krell ambassador leaned forward until his face filled the hologram. "You have 72 hours. Submit or die. Every human city will burn. Your species will be erased from existence. The council has spoken." The holograms vanished. Daniel and Lisa stood alone in the silent room. Through the windows they could see Earth below, blue and green and beautiful, home to 8 billion people who had no idea their entire species had just been sentenced to death. "They mean it," Lisa said. "Our intelligence reports show 3 battle fleets moving toward Earth. Each one has more than 100 warships." Daniel nodded slowly. He walked to the window and pressed his hand against the cold glass. Down there, people were living their normal lives. Going to work, raising children, falling in love. They had no idea that aliens wanted to enslave them or kill them. "Send a message to President Hayes," Daniel said. "Tell her to begin Protocol Defiance. Sir, that means war. A war we cannot win. They have thousands of ships. We have 12. I know the numbers, Commander." "Then you know we will lose." Daniel turned to face her. His eyes were hard as steel. "They came to our home, Lisa. They threatened our families. They told us to bow down or die. They thought we would be so scared that we would give up everything we are. Won't we?" Lisa asked. "Isn't surrender better than extinction?" "No," Daniel said. "Because even if we surrender, we lose who we are. They will work us to death in their minds. They will send our children to die in their wars. They will take everything from us piece by piece until there is nothing left. At least if we fight, we die as free people." Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then she straightened her shoulders. "What are your orders, Captain?" "Tell all Earth ships to fall back to defensive positions. Begin evacuating the orbital stations. Start moving ammunition and supplies to the asteroid bases. And send a message to every human in the fleet." "What message?" Daniel looked back at Earth. "Tell them we never wanted this war. We never wanted to fight aliens we just met. But they brought war to our doorstep. And if they want to take our freedom, they will have to pay for it in blood." Lisa saluted and left the room. Daniel stayed at the window, watching his homeworld turn slowly in the darkness. He thought about his sister down there, teaching school in Boston. He thought about his nephew who had just turned 6. He thought about all the ordinary people living ordinary lives. The sovereignty thought humans were weak because they were new to space travel. They thought humans would panic and surrender. They had no idea what humans could do when their backs were against the wall. They had no idea that humanity had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. Earth had unified 20 years ago after a brutal conflict that nearly destroyed the planet. From that ashes, humanity had learned a terrible lesson. They had learned how to work together. They had learned how to fight smart instead of fighting fair. They had learned that desperation could breed miracles. Daniel pulled up a holographic display. It showed Earth's 12 military ships. The Valiant, the Defiant, the Relentless, and 9 others. They were small compared to alien warships. Their weapons were primitive by galactic standards. But they had something the sovereignty did not expect. They had human crews who would never quit. A message came through from President Hayes. Her face appeared on the screen. She looked tired and old, but her voice was firm. Captain Harper, I have received your request. The Security Council has voted. We will not surrender.
We will fight.
God help us all. God help them, Daniel replied. Because we are going to teach the sovereignty a lesson they will never forget. The president nodded. Our scientists have been working on something. New weapons based on old human ideas. Nothing fancy but effective. You will have them within 48 hours. What kind of weapons? The kind that explode, she said with a grim smile. We cannot match their energy shields or their fancy technology. But we can match their violence. We will show them that humans are very good at destroying things when we need to be. Daniel felt a cold satisfaction settle in his chest. When do they arrive? 72 hours. Right on schedule. Then we have time to prepare a welcome they will never forget. The transmission ended. Daniel took one last look at Earth, then headed to the shuttle bay. He had a war to prepare for. A war that would decide if humanity survived or perished. A war that nobody wanted but everybody would have to fight. In 72 hours, the sovereignty would learn a hard truth. Humans did not want the throne. They did not want to rule the galaxy. They just wanted to be left alone. But if someone tried to take their freedom, they would discover that humans were the most dangerous species in the universe, not because they were strong, but because they refused to quit. The darkness beyond Neptune was absolute. Captain Jacob Wells sat in the command chair of the ECS Valiant, watching his tactical display with patient eyes. 7 other Earthships floated nearby, all running silent, all waiting. They had been waiting for 6 hours, floating like ghosts in the cold void. Contact, Lieutenant Kelly Moore said from the sensor station. 300 ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Distance 5 million kilometers and closing. Jacob leaned forward. 300 against 8. The odds were insane. But humans had always done their best work when the odds were insane. What are they doing? He asked. Kelly studied her displays. They are not even scanning properly, sir. Their formation is loose. They think we are no threat. Jacob allowed himself a small smile. Good, let them think that. The sovereignty had crushed 500 alien species over thousands of years. They were used to enemies who surrendered quickly or died quickly. They had never fought someone who was willing to cheat, lie, and fight dirty to survive. For the past 2 months, Earth's best scientists and engineers had been working around the clock. They could not match alien energy shields or plasma weapons. Human technology was too primitive. But they could match human creativity. And humans had been killing each other efficiently for thousands of years. They knew a lot about making weapons. Open fleet channel, Jacob ordered. His display lit up with the faces of the other 7 captains. All of them looked tired. All of them looked determined. This is Valiant Actual. Remember the plan. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and do not let them pin you down. Make every shot count. Make them pay for every meter of space. And if your ship goes down, take as many of them with you as you can. The other captains nodded. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say. Enemy fleet entering weapons range, Kelly announced. They are increasing speed. They want to reach Earth quickly. Deploy the mines, Jacob said calmly. From each of the 8 human ships, thousands of small objects floated out into space. They were each the size of a football, covered in material that absorbed radar and sensor sweeps. Inside each one was a fusion warhead powerful enough to crack a small moon. Humans had used naval mines in ocean warfare for centuries. Now they were using them in space. The mines drifted silently, spreading out across the enemy's path. The Sovereignty fleet came on, confident and fast. They did not see the mines. They did not expect such primitive tactics from a species they considered barely capable of space travel. The first mine detonated directly beneath a Sovereignty cruiser. The ship's shields were designed to stop energy weapons coming from outside. They were not designed to stop a nuclear explosion that started inside the shield perimeter. The cruiser came apart like a toy, breaking into 3 pieces that tumbled away into space. Then more mines detonated. 10, 20, 50, 100. The front of the Sovereignty fleet turned into a wall of fire. Ships collided with each other trying to avoid the explosions. Some activated their shields too late. Others activated them just in time to trap the explosion inside with them. In 90 seconds, 16 Sovereignty warships were destroyed. Another 20 were damaged and falling back. All ships engage, Jacob commanded. The 8 human ships came to life, their engines burning bright in the darkness. They dove into the chaos like sharks into a feeding frenzy. The Valiant's railguns opened fire. These were simple weapons, just magnetic coils that threw chunks of metal very, very fast. The tungsten slugs were each the size of a telephone pole, and they traveled at 15% the speed of light. When they hit something, they hit with the force of a nuclear bomb. A Sovereignty destroyer caught 3 slugs in the side. Its armor, designed to deflect energy weapons, might as well have been paper. The slugs punched through the hull and out the other side, leaving 3 massive holes. Air and bodies sprayed out into space. The ship began to spin out of control. Target destroyed, Kelly reported. Acquiring new target. The battle turned into a knife fight. The human ships were faster and more agile than the larger alien vessels. They used the wreckage of destroyed ships as cover. They fired from unexpected angles. They worked together like a pack of wolves taking down much larger prey. The ECS Defiant raked her cannons across a battleship's engines, crippling it. The ECS Relentless fired a spread of missiles that overwhelmed a cruiser's point defense systems. The ECS Liberty rammed a damaged destroyer, her reinforced bow crushing through the alien ship's weakened hull. The Sovereignty fleet tried to form up, tried to use their superior numbers to surround and destroy the human ships. But they were too slow, too confused, too used to fighting enemies who played by the rules. Humans did not play by rules when their survival was at stake. Multiple enemy ships are breaking formation, Kelly said. They are confused, sir. Some are even firing on each other. Jacob watched as a Sovereignty battleship accidentally hit one of its own cruisers with a plasma bolt. The cruiser's shields collapsed and it went dark. Good, he said. Let them panic. Helm, bring us around for another pass. Target that command ship. The Valiant swung around, her railguns charging. The command ship was twice the size of any other vessel in the fleet, covered in armor and bristling with weapons. It was launching fighters now, small craft that swarmed toward the human ships. Missiles away, Kelly said. A spread of 20 missiles streaked toward the command ship. Half of them were destroyed by point defense, but half got through. They impacted against the shields, overloading them for just 3 seconds. That was all the time Jacob needed. Fire, he ordered. 6 railgun slugs hit the command ship in quick succession. The first 3 broke through the weakened shields. The last 3 punched through the armor and into the ship's core. There was a bright flash, and then the command ship began to break apart from the inside. But the Sovereignty was not done yet. A cruiser managed to get a lucky shot on the ECS Liberty. The plasma bolt caught her engines and the ship exploded in a ball of fire. 60 crew members died instantly. Liberty is gone, Kelly said quietly. Jacob felt the loss like a punch to the gut. But he could not stop. Could not grieve, not yet. All ships continue engagement. Make Liberty's sacrifice count, the battle raged on. The human ships were taking damage now. The ECS Defiant lost her main guns. The ECS Relentless was leaking air from a dozen hull breaches. But they kept fighting, kept moving, kept killing. Finally, after 17 minutes of brutal combat, Jacob gave the order to withdraw. All ships fall back to rally point Beta. Engines to maximum. The 5 remaining human ships turned and ran, accelerating toward the inner system. Behind them, the Sovereignty fleet tried to pursue. But they were too damaged, too disorganized, too shocked by what had just happened. Jacob pulled up the battle report. 43 Sovereignty ships destroyed, 20 more heavily damaged, and the humans had lost 3 ships. The ECS Liberty, the ECS Hope, and the ECS Freedom. 200 brave men and women who would never see home again. But they had done it. They had faced an enemy with overwhelming numbers and superior technology, and they had won. Not just survived, won. Kelly, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the First Fleet has been engaged and driven off. The enemy knows now that we will fight. Yes, sir. Jacob sat back in his chair, suddenly feeling every bit of his 45 years. This was just the first battle. There would be more, many more. The sovereignty would send bigger fleets, better commanders, and they would be ready for human tricks next time. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Today, humanity had proven something important. They had proven they could hurt the enemy. They had proven they would not go down without a fight. The Valiant and her sisters limped toward Mars, toward repair docks and resupply. Behind them, the wreckage of 43 alien warships drifted in the darkness, a warning to anyone who thought humans would surrender without a fight. The war had begun, and humanity had drawn first blood. 6 months had changed everything. President Margaret Hayes stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva, surrounded by screens showing battles across the solar system. The walls were covered with photographs of the dead, thousands of faces staring back at her, each one a son or daughter, a mother or father, a person who had died defending humanity. Margaret had aged 10 years and 6 months. Her hair was now gray. Lines covered her face. She slept 3 hours a night if she was lucky. Every decision she made could mean life or death for millions. Mars Station is holding, General Raymond Carter reported. He was studying a tactical display showing the red planet. But they are almost out of ammunition. The supply convoy will not reach them for 2 more days. Tell Luna Base to double production on the railgun ammunition, Margaret ordered. Strip workers from everything else if you have to. Ma'am, those workers are already doing 18-hour shifts. They are exhausted. Then they need to be more exhausted, Margaret said, her voice hard. The sovereignty will not give us time to rest. Every bullet we make might save a human life. Push them harder. Raymond nodded and turned away to give the orders. Margaret knew she sounded like a tyrant. She knew she was asking the impossible from people who were already giving everything. But what choice did she have? The enemy would not stop, would not slow down, would not show mercy. The war had been brutal. After the first battle at Neptune, the sovereignty had attacked again and again. Humanity fought back with everything they had. They used asteroid bases as fortresses. They laid minefields across the solar system. They attacked supply lines and ambushed patrol groups. They fought like cornered animals because that was exactly what they were. And somehow, incredibly, they were still alive. Humanity had lost millions of people. 3 orbital stations destroyed. 2 colonies on Mars wiped out. Countless ships. But they had also destroyed more than 200 sovereignty warships. The aliens were learning that conquering Earth would not be easy. Colonel Andrew Pierce walked into the room. His uniform was dusty and torn. 2 hours ago, a sovereignty ship had fired on Geneva from orbit. The shot had missed the war room by half a kilometer. Andrew had been at ground level when it hit. He looked like he had walked through hell. We have a problem, Andrew said without greeting. Intelligence intercepted a transmission from sovereignty space. They are sending the second armada. The room went silent. Every person stopped what they were doing and turned to look at Andrew. How many ships? Margaret asked. Her voice was very quiet. 1,200, maybe 1,500. The transmission was not clear. Margaret felt her stomach drop. 1,200 ships. Humanity had barely survived against 300. Even with all their clever tactics and desperate courage, how could they fight 1,200 warships? What are our options? She asked. Evacuation, Raymond said slowly. We load colony ships with as many people as possible. We run for deep space. Maybe some of us survive. Running means they win, Margaret said. Running means we lose Earth. Staying means we all die. Before Margaret could respond, another voice spoke up. Dr. Helen Price was a physicist who had been working on advanced weapons since the war began. She was thin and pale from spending 6 months underground, but her eyes were bright with intelligence. We do not run, Helen said. We make them wish they never came here. She activated a holographic display in the center of the room. It showed a massive ring covered in generators and power cores. The ring was huge, large enough to orbit a small planet. Project Thunderbolt, Helen explained. A gravitational disruptor on a scale never attempted before. We build it and place it in orbit around the sun. When we activate it, the device creates a shockwave through space-time itself. The wave will disable every ship in the solar system for about 4 hours. Raymond stared at the design. Including our ships. Yes, but we will know it is coming. We can prepare. The enemy will not know. For 4 hours, every ship in the system will be dead in space. No power, no weapons, no shields. And in those 4 hours, our people board their ships and take them or destroy them from the inside. That is insane, Raymond said. It is brilliant, Margaret replied. She studied the design carefully. It was the most desperate plan she had ever seen. It was also the only plan that had any chance of working. How long to build it? 3 weeks if we strip resources from everything else. 4 weeks if we want to keep defending ourselves while we build. You have 3 weeks, Margaret decided. Strip whatever you need. This is our only chance. Helen nodded and left to begin work. Margaret turned back to the tactical displays. 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, the Second Armada would arrive, and humanity would either win the most unlikely victory in history or cease to exist. The next 21 days were the hardest of the war. Every resource was diverted to building Project Thunderbolt. Ships that needed repairs went without. Stations that needed ammunition had to make do. Mars Station fell on day 16, overwhelmed by a sovereignty attack. 5,000 people died. Margaret added their photographs to the wall and kept working. The device came together slowly. Thousands of workers labored around the clock, building the massive ring in orbit of the sun. It was dangerous work. 57 people died in construction accidents. The heat was intense even with shielding. But the work continued. Meanwhile, sovereignty scouts were appearing at the edge of the solar system. They were watching, waiting, reporting back. The Second Armada was coming. On day 19, one of the scouts got lucky. It fired a long-range missile that hit a construction platform. 30 workers died. Part of the ring was damaged. Helen's team worked for 48 hours straight to repair it. On day 21, the Second Armada arrived. Margaret watched the tactical display as 1,200 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They arranged themselves in a massive formation, ready to sweep through the solar system and destroy everything human. They had learned from the first battles. This time they came prepared. Project Thunderbolt is ready, Helen reported from the solar array. All safeties are removed. Ready on your command, ma'am. Margaret looked around the war room. She saw Raymond, who had fought beside her for 6 months. She saw Andrew, who had survived more battles than anyone should have to. She saw dozens of officers and technicians who had given everything to reach this moment. She thought about her daughter, serving on the ECS Relentless. She thought about her grandson, hiding in a shelter in New York. She thought about 8 billion people whose lives depended on what happened in the next few hours. For Earth, Margaret said, and she activated Project Thunderbolt. The sun seemed to pulse. That was what it looked like on every screen, every sensor. The massive ring around the sun fired all its generators at once. It created a gravitational shockwave that rippled out through space at the speed of light. The wave hit Mercury in 3 minutes. It hit Venus in 6. It reached Earth in 8 minutes and 20 seconds. Every human ship in the system lost power for exactly 90 seconds. But 90 seconds was all they needed. Their systems were hardened against the pulse. They rebooted quickly and came back online. The Sovereignty Armada was not so lucky. 1,200 warships died at the same moment, not destroyed but disabled. Every system crashed. Every weapon went offline. Every shield collapsed. They floated in space like dead whales, completely helpless. All assault teams launch now. The order went out across the human fleet. Thousands of small craft erupted from human bases and ships. Each one carried 20 Marines in combat armor. They swarmed toward the disabled alien vessels like piranhas attacking wounded prey. Lieutenant Kelly Moore led her team through the corridors of a Sovereignty battleship. Her rifle fired in short, controlled bursts. The aliens were confused, scrambling for weapons, trying to understand what had happened. The humans had trained for this moment. They moved fast, hit hard, and showed no mercy. Engine room secured, one team reported over the radio. Bridge is ours, another confirmed. Reactor rigged to explode, a third announced. All across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Human Marines were outnumbered on every ship, but they had surprise, speed, and desperate courage. They knew this was humanity's last chance. They fought like demons. 4 hours later, when the Sovereignty systems came back online, their fleet was in ruins. 300 ships captured, 400 destroyed from the inside, the rest fleeing in panic, jumping to faster-than-light travel as fast as their damaged engines could manage. In the war room, Margaret Hayes sat down heavily in her chair. Around her, people were cheering and crying and hugging each other.
They had won.
Against impossible odds, they had won. But Margaret did not cheer. She looked at the wall of photographs, at all the faces of the dead. Millions of people who had died to reach this moment. The price had been terrible. But humanity had survived, and the galaxy would never underestimate humans again. Supreme Commander Valor stood on the bridge of the Eternal Judgment and watched the primitive human world grow larger on his displays. Around his flagship, 1,199 other warships held perfect formation. The Second Armada was the pride of the sovereignty, and it would crush this annoying species once and for all. Valor was Krell, like the ambassador who had first delivered the ultimatum to humanity. His armored body clicked with satisfaction as he studied the tactical situation. 6 months ago, a small human force had gotten lucky and destroyed some scouts. Since then, the humans had fought with surprising skill. But skill did not matter against overwhelming numbers. All ships advanced toward the inner system, Valor commanded. Target their orbital facilities first. Let them watch everything they built burn before we destroy their homeworld. The Armada moved forward like a mechanical tide. Each ship was larger than anything humanity had built. Each one carried enough firepower to level a city. Together, they were unstoppable. On Earth, in the war room beneath Geneva, Margaret Hayes watched the same tactical displays. Her hand hovered over a single red button. Around her, the room was silent. Everyone knew what was about to happen. Everyone knew this was humanity's last desperate gamble. Project Thunderbolt is active and ready, Dr. Helen Price reported from her station at the solar array. All safeties are removed. Firing on your command, Madam President. Margaret thought about the billions of people on Earth who were sheltering underground. She thought about the colonies on Mars that had already fallen. She thought about every human ship and station that would be disabled when the weapon fired. If this failed, humanity would be completely defenseless. But if they did nothing, they would die anyway. For Earth, Margaret said quietly, and pressed the button. 8 light minutes away, the massive ring around the sun came alive. Every generator fired at once. The device created a ripple in space-time itself, a gravitational shockwave that spread out in all directions at the speed of light. It was like dropping a stone in a pond, except the pond was reality itself. The shockwave hit Mercury and fried every electronic system on the small science station there. The humans had 90 seconds of backup power and redundant systems. They came back online quickly. The wave hit Venus and swept through the floating research platforms. Again, the humans had prepared. Their systems crashed and rebooted. The wave reached Earth. Across the planet, lights flickered. Computers crashed. Every satellite went dark for 90 seconds. Then the backup systems kicked in and everything came back to life. The wave kept spreading, invisible and unstoppable. It reached the advancing sovereignty. Armada exactly 14 minutes after Margaret pushed the button. Valor was studying a tactical display when every screen on the bridge suddenly went dark. The lights died. The gravity generators failed and he floated off the deck. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the bridge. What happened? Valor demanded. Report. His officers were frantically trying to restart their systems. Nothing worked. The main reactor was offline. The backup reactor was offline. Even the emergency batteries showed no charge. Unknown, sir, his second-in-command replied. All systems have failed simultaneously. We are dead in space. Valor looked out through the viewports. He could see other ships in the Armada, all dark, all drifting. 1,200 warships rendered helpless in an instant. His mind raced, trying to understand. The humans had no weapon like this. They were primitives who barely understood gravity, let alone how to manipulate it. Then he saw movement. Small craft were launching from the inner system. Hundreds of them, thousands. They were heading toward the disabled Armada. Get our systems back online now, Valor ordered. We need weapons. We need shields, but there was nothing his crew could do. The shockwave had not just turned off their systems. It had temporarily disrupted the quantum fields that powered their technology. The ships would not come back online for hours. The human assault craft reached the first ships of the Armada. Valor watched helplessly as they attached to hulls and began cutting through airlocks. Seal all internal doors, he commanded. Arm the crew with whatever weapons we have. Prepare to repel boarders, but it was too late. The humans were already inside. Lieutenant Kelly Moore led her squad through the dark corridors of a sovereignty battleship. Her helmet light cut through the shadows. Behind her, 19 other Marines moved in perfect formation. They had trained for this for weeks, practicing close-quarters combat in zero gravity. The first group of aliens they encountered was trying to set up a defensive position at an intersection. The aliens had energy weapons, but the weapons were not working. They tried to use them as clubs. Kelly's rifle fired 3 times. 3 aliens went down. Her squad moved past them without stopping. They had to reach the engine room before the ship came back online. Team 2 status? She called over the radio. Bridge secured, came the reply. 10 hostiles down, no casualties. Team 3? Engineering secured. Setting charges now. All across the Armada, similar scenes were playing out. Human Marines were swarming through disabled ships. They had numbers, speed, and surprise on their side. The aliens were better armed when their weapons worked. But hand-to-hand combat was something humans had perfected over thousands of years. Kelly's squad reached the engine room. It was a massive chamber filled with machinery she did not understand. But she did not need to understand it. She just needed to destroy it. Plant the charges, she ordered. We have 10 minutes before this ship comes back online. Her demolitions expert moved forward with a pack full of explosives. He began attaching them to critical-looking components. Kelly watched the doors, her rifle ready. Footsteps echoed from a side corridor. A group of Krell warriors appeared, each one twice the size of a human. They were armed with metal bars ripped from the walls. Contact rear, Kelly called and opened fire. The bullets ricocheted off Krell armor, but some found weak points. One Krell went down. Another roared in anger and charged forward. Kelly's squad fired in controlled bursts, aiming for joints and gaps in the armor. The fight was brief and brutal. 2 Marines were injured by swinging metal bars. But all 6 Krell were killed. Charges set, the demolitions expert reported. We have 5 minutes to get clear. Kelly led her squad back toward the airlock where they had entered. Behind them, similar teams were evacuating from every captured ship. Some teams had seized control of the bridges and were locking out the original crews. Other teams had planted explosives and were running. On the bridge of the Eternal Judgment, Valor watched his tactical displays flicker back to life. His ship was coming back online, finally. But as the displays showed him the situation, his hope turned to horror. 300 ships showed green on the display. They were still under sovereignty control. 700 ships showed red. They were either destroyed or captured. The remaining 200 were showing system errors and damage reports. In 4 hours, humanity had destroyed his armada. Open a channel to all surviving ships, Valor ordered, his voice hollow. Order them to retreat. Jump to faster-than-light travel as soon as possible. Sir, we cannot abandon. We have already lost, Valor roared. Get us out of here before they finish us off. The surviving sovereignty ships began jumping away, fleeing back toward their own space. They left behind 400 destroyed ships and 300 captured ones. It was the worst defeat in sovereignty history. On Earth, Margaret Hayes watched the enemy fleet flee. Around her, the war room erupted in celebration. People were crying and laughing and cheering. They had done the impossible. They had defeated an enemy that outnumbered them by more than 100 to 1, but Margaret did not celebrate. She thought about the millions of humans who had died in the past 6 months. She thought about the destroyed colonies and shattered cities. She thought about the cost of victory. General Raymond Carter approached her, a rare smile on his weathered face. We won, ma'am. We actually won. We survived, Margaret corrected. Winning comes next. What do you mean? Margaret gestured at the display showing the captured sovereignty ships. Those ships represent advanced technology, faster engines, better weapons, proper shields, and they come with crews who know how the sovereignty works, how they think, how they fight. You want to interrogate prisoners? I want to learn everything we can from them. And then I want to send a message to the Sovereignty Council, a message they cannot ignore. What message? Margaret's expression was hard. That humanity is done being pushed around. That if they try this again, we will bring the fight to their worlds. That they can have peace or they can have war. But if they choose war, we will make them regret it. Raymond nodded slowly. You think they will listen? After today? Yes, we just proved that humans are the most dangerous thing in this galaxy. Not because we are strong, but because we refuse to quit. The sovereignty has never faced an enemy like that before. Across the solar system, human crews were boarding the captured sovereignty ships and beginning to figure out how they worked. Engineers pored over alien technology. Scientists studied alien weapons. Interrogators began talking to shell-shocked prisoners. Humanity had survived, but more than that, they had won. And in winning, they had changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 months after the battle, A sovereignty delegation arrived at Earth. But this time they came in unarmed transport ships, not warships. This time they came asking for permission to enter human space, not demanding surrender. Admiral Daniel Harper stood in the conference room of the newly built orbital station. The station floated above Earth, a symbol of humanity's refusal to be intimidated. Around him stood Commander Lisa Grant and a dozen other human officers. They watched as the alien delegation filed into the room. The Krell ambassador who had delivered the ultimatum 9 months ago was among them. But he looked different now. His armored plates were folded in a posture that human scientists had identified as submission. His voice, once so threatening, was now careful and measured. Admiral Harper, the ambassador began. The Sovereignty Council extends an offer of peace to humanity. Daniel remained standing. He did not offer the aliens seats. He did not offer refreshments. He simply waited. The ambassador continued. We acknowledge that humanity has proven itself to be a formidable species. The Council proposes a treaty. Earth maintains its independence. In exchange, humanity provides military assistance in defending sovereignty borders from external threats. Lisa almost laughed out loud. You want us to fight your wars? After you tried to enslave us? The threats on the border are real, a Vryn representative chimed in, its crystalline body refracting the light. The Devourers have been attacking our outer colonies for decades. We have been holding them back, but we need help. You humans have proven to be exceptional warriors. Daniel exchanged a glance with President Hayes, who was attending the meeting via hologram. She gave him a slight nod. They had discussed this possibility. The sovereignty was desperate. Here are our terms, Daniel said, sliding a data pad across the table. Full independence for Earth and all human colonies now and in the future. Equal representation on the Galactic Council with full voting rights. Technology sharing between our species, not tribute flowing one way. Any military assistance will be voluntary. We will not conscript our people to die in your wars. The Krell ambassador picked up the datapad and studied it. His face was hard to read, but Daniel could see the tension in his body. These terms are unprecedented, the ambassador said finally. No new species has ever been granted council membership. That honor is earned over centuries. We earned it, Daniel replied coldly. We earned it by defeating 2 of your armadas. We earned it by showing you that we will not be bullied. If you do not like our terms, you are welcome to leave. But if you choose to fight us again, remember how the last fight ended. The silence in the room was heavy. The alien delegates looked at each other. Some seemed angry, others seemed resigned. They were used to being the ones making demands. Being on the receiving end was new and uncomfortable. The Vryn spoke again. There is another matter. The Council wishes to offer humanity a seat as a senior member of the Sovereignty's ruling council, to help guide policy across 500 species. Daniel blinked in surprise. You are offering us the throne? A voice in governing the entire sovereignty? The sovereignty has always been ruled by the strongest, the Vryn explained. For 3,000 years that has been us, the Krell, and a few others. But you have shown strength that surpasses ours. That gives you the right to lead. Daniel sat down slowly, processing this. 9 months ago, humanity had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Now they were being offered a position of galactic leadership. It was absurd. It was also an opportunity. We need time to discuss this among ourselves, Daniel said. The alien delegation was escorted to guest quarters. Daniel, Lisa, and the other humans gathered around President Hayes' hologram. They are serious, Lisa said. Intelligence confirms that their border conflicts with the Devourers are getting worse. They need us. Can we trust them? One of the other officers asked. No, Daniel said flatly. But we do not need to trust them. We just need to be strong enough that they are afraid to betray us. Margaret Hayes spoke from her hologram. The question is whether we want this responsibility. We could refuse. We could fortify our solar system and ignore the rest of the galaxy. We would be safe. Would we? Daniel asked. What happens in 10 years when the Devourers finish conquering the sovereignty and turn their attention to us? What happens when some other threat emerges and we are alone against it? So you think we should accept? Daniel was quiet for a long moment. He thought about the war. He thought about the millions of humans who had died. He thought about his nephew who would grow up in whatever galaxy humanity chose to create. We never wanted the throne, he said finally. We just wanted to be left alone. We wanted to explore the stars, make some friends, learn about the universe. But the sovereignty came to us with threats. They tried to force us to bow down, and in defending ourselves, we showed them something they had forgotten. What? Lisa asked. That strength is not just about having the biggest fleet or the best weapons. Strength is about refusing to quit. It is about fighting for what matters. It is about standing up for yourself and for others who cannot stand up for themselves. He looked around at the others. If we take a seat on their council, we can protect other species from what happened to us. We can push back against tyranny. We can try to build something better than an empire built on fear. Margaret nodded slowly. I will put it to a vote on Earth, but I think I know what the answer will be. 2 days later, the answer came back. Earth's population voted 73% in favor of accepting the council seat. The message was clear. Humanity would not hide. They would stand up and try to make the galaxy a better place. The alien delegation was recalled to the conference room. Daniel noticed they looked nervous. Good. The people of Earth have voted, Daniel announced. We accept your offer of peace. We accept a seat on the Galactic Council. But understand this. We will not be your servants. We will not be your soldiers. We will be your partners, your equals, and if necessary, your conscience. The Krell ambassador seemed to relax slightly. The council accepts your terms. We will begin technology transfers immediately. We will also brief you on the situation with the Devourers. One more thing, Daniel added. Any species that wants independence from the sovereignty will get it. No more forced vassals. No more tribute extracted at gunpoint. If you want people to fight for the sovereignty, give them a reason to want to fight. That would mean restructuring the entire government, the Vryn protested. Yes, Daniel agreed. It would. Think of it as evolution. Adapt or die. You tried ruling through fear and it nearly destroyed you. Try ruling through cooperation and see if that works better. The aliens did not look happy, but they nodded agreement. They had no choice. Humanity held 300 captured sovereignty warships, and the technical knowledge to build more. They had proven they could fight. And unlike the sovereignty, they had proven they would fight for principles, not just territory. Over the next weeks, the treaty was finalized and signed. Human engineers began studying sovereignty technology, while sovereignty scientists learned from human innovation. It was not a perfect partnership. There was suspicion on both sides, but it was a start. Daniel stood at the viewport of the orbital station, watching construction crews work on the new embassy complex. Human and alien workers side by side, building something together instead of destroying each other. Lisa joined him at the viewport. Do you think it will work? Can we really change an empire that has existed for 3,000 years? I do not know, Daniel admitted. But we have to try. Because if we do not, if we just become another species fighting for power, then what was the point? All those people who died in the war, they died for something better than just survival. They died for freedom, Lisa said. Yes, and now we have a chance to give that freedom to others. To show the galaxy that there is another way, not through conquest or submission, but through cooperation. He turned to face her. We never wanted the throne. We never wanted to rule anything. But they brought war to our doorstep and forced our hand. Now we have power we never asked for. The question is what we do with it. We could abuse it, Lisa pointed out. We could become just like them. We could, Daniel agreed. And we have to guard against that. We have to remember why we fought. Not for glory or conquest, but for the right to exist on our own terms. Below them, Earth turned slowly in the darkness. 8 billion people going about their lives, most of them unaware of the enormous responsibility their species had just accepted. Humanity had become a galactic power almost by accident, through sheer stubborn refusal to surrender. The age of humanity's isolation was over. They had been dragged into galactic affairs by force, but now they had a chance to shape those affairs, to push back against tyranny, to protect the weak instead of exploiting them. It would not be easy. There would be setbacks and failures. There would be times when humans made mistakes, when they failed to live up to their ideals. But they would try, because that was what humans did. They tried to make things better. Daniel watched the construction crews work and allowed himself a small smile. The sovereignty had come to Earth demanding submission. They had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they had found an enemy that refused to quit, that fought with everything they had, that turned desperation into victory. Now that same stubborn species would try to reform an empire, protect the innocent, and build a galaxy worth living in. It was an impossible task. But humans had already done several impossible things in the past year. What was one more? Come on, Daniel said to Lisa. We have a council meeting in an hour. Time to start fixing the galaxy. No pressure, Lisa said with a wry smile. They left the viewport and headed for the conference room. Behind them, Earth continued its eternal rotation, home to the species that never wanted the throne but would carry its burden anyway, because someone had to. And humans, for better or worse, never backed down from a challenge. The galaxy was about to learn what that meant.